Welcome to Sharp Sharp. This is episode 20 of South Africa's hottest new podcast with me, Rob Rose from the Financial Mail, and Zukile Majova from Scrolla. Zuks, this is our 20th episode, and we're going from strength to strength. There seems to be a groundswell of support for our podcast, which is fantastic.
We've been excited to get to 20th episode. Last week you kept saying, it's coming next week. Well, it is here.
Well, our producer Dylan keeps dragging us out of bed at unearthly hours in the middle of the freezing cold in Joburg, where it's snowing in some places, to go and record this. So I'm hugely resentful of Dylan.
Yeah. I'm really excited about snow. You know where I come from. It's snowing like crazy in Mount Frere, Matatiel. We are right on the edge of the mountains, almost bordering Lesotho, so you can imagine how it is. But we love snow there, Rob.
The kids must love the snow.
We love the snow. The kids love the snow. Everybody loves the snow. I mean, we are farmers there. We're small farmers there. It's really good because you're going to get fresh grass around September, October, which means no longer buying feed. So it gets cheaper, you know. But also, in my house already, we're talking about putting potatoes under the ground because it's going to be nice harvest around November, December. When it snows, Rob, it's time to cash in for us. We love the snow.
Oh, that's great. Well, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today, which is primarily, it's snowing on the ANC's electoral prospects, first off. We're going to talk about whether South Africa's security forces are completely unaccountable. And let's get right into it. Firstly, let's talk about the fact that there was a new SRF, Social Research Foundation survey that came out this week that put the ANC at 18% in Joburg, which is a massive movement. I mean, this was a poll of 500 Joburg voters, and there's a margin of error of 4.4%. So, and it's also true that the ANC hasn't started campaigning yet. But for the ANC to have fallen to 18% in Joburg is a massive moment. The DA is leading there at 42%, and that's partly through Helen Zille's, I suppose, her own personality has dragged the DA up there in Joburg as a potential mayoral candidate. But Zuks, to me, the thing I find most arresting is Joburg is the heart of the ANC's centre. I suppose it is the heart of the ANC. I mean, this is where Luthuli House is. This is where Nelson Mandela lived for so many years. Mandela and Tambo opened up Chancellor House, the law firm there. It's where so many treason trials happened. It's where everything actually is centred in the ANC. It's where Sharpeville happened, Joburg. It's where the 1976 Soweto riots around education happened. For it to be 18% in Joburg is a massive thing for the party.
That is all history, Rob. You're talking about history. People are not talking about history. It's local government elections. People don't talk about refuse removal. People are talking about service delivery. People are talking about water. Many townships don't have water. Last night, power went out. It apparently is reported there were about 2,000 power outputs. Power cuts around the city of Joburg the last 2 days. We're talking service delivery. History, we know history. We love history. We love Nelson Mandela. But if the ANC doesn't deliver, people are going to deal with the ANC. Look, the survey didn't shock me, Rob, except that
18%. History is important, actually.
I was putting the ANC around, I was estimating about 25% to 20% at the worst, to drop below 20%. Yeah, that's something. And quite interestingly, the question is, yes, we know that people are leaving the ANC, but are they going to leave the ANC to the DA?
Well, the DA, 42%, it seems like it's certainly the biggest party there. It does suggest that it might then only need to partner with one or two parties to make up, I suppose, a governing coalition in Joburg. If they don't creep over the 50% mark, there's the most obvious candidate would be Herman Mashaba and ActionSA, who got 10% in that particular poll. I know that they have been at loggerheads. Herman Mashaba and Helen Zille aren't short of their own egos, and hence there's a lot of brinkmanship and, clashing of swords. But equally, they would probably be the best suited, I suppose, according to policy.
I was very surprised. I had an exclusive briefing from ActionSA, and I asked this particular question around working with the DA. And I was surprised that they said, we will consider it. I thought it was totally out of the question. They're like, no. We could consider it. Let's see how the elections come out, etc. That's a huge step. That's a huge step. Because looking practically, ActionSA wants to keep Tshwane. Tshwane. They're not going to win it alone. Obviously, they will be allowed by the ANC to keep Tshwane on condition that they support them in Joburg and Ekurhuleni and all of that. That's how the coalition is going to work.
But I mean, essentially, there was a national element to this survey as well, and I think that the ANC is at 34%. But it just seems to me such a significant moment in this country's history for the ANC to be at 18% in Joburg, that augurs very badly for their chances in the national poll. The next one is only in a couple of years still.
Yeah.
But I mean, what does that say about the ANC's dissolution? It's essentially falling apart. Is there any way back for the party?
Look, Rob, I mean, this is very similar to 2024 election if you look at it. You know, now they're going to go down another 15%. It's very similar. It's a trend that we are looking at. It shouldn't really be surprising us. Now, when you're looking at turnaround strategies, you've got to have a record where you can say, we turn this around, we turn this around. And there are not many examples where the ANC found something and it went bad and they turned it around. You can look anywhere, whether you're looking at state companies, etc. Probably ESCOM is in a better situation now, you know, but everywhere else it's been very bad. Now, especially in municipal administration, from Port Elizabeth to Durban. Durban shouldn't have been allowed to go down that far, just like Joburg shouldn't have been allowed to be in the state it is in. So you cannot expect people who broke down the city to actually fix the city.
So, I mean, the SRF, it's just one poll, obviously, but it's an important one because these were the guys who, before the last election in 2024, said the ANC is on track to get 40% of the vote. And people thought that's crazy. There's no way the ANC is going, you know, if it loses the vote, if it loses the majority, it'll be sort of 47, 48. But the SRF was on target. I mean, 40% is what it got, actually slightly less than 40%.
Yeah, they're spot on.
So this 18% is probably a good sign of where things are. And nationally, they say that the ANC is now tracking at 34%. That's essentially just one in three people voting for the ANC. That's a major moment for them.
We're 3 months away, Rob. I think probably another poll is going to be due. I think let's see, after a month of ANC campaigning, you know, we've seen very crazy videos where ANC people approach someone's gate and they'll be like, "Hey, get out." You know, so you're starting to see that.
I've got the bag of cash here.
Yeah, you're starting to see that, Rob, and the more people see that, but it's the whole bravery thing as well. Because let's say where I come from, you know, if ANC people are walking down the street, going house to house, and they come to your house, and you chase them away, you would be the one who chased the ANC away for the next 5 years. Everybody will like that house, you know, so. That people welcome the ANC does not necessarily mean they will actually vote for the ANC. Sometimes you just do it for the optics.
Absolutely. I mean, I went to quite a few rallies with EFF in before the 2024 election, and a lot of the people were there, and they were talking about. I mean, I was covering it as a journalist, and the guys I spoke to said, "Of course, we're going to go to the rallies. You know, it's great. It's kind of fun. It's townships around the country, but we're not going to vote for this guy. He's not a serious contender."
Yeah, EFF rallies are fun. They actually have bribes. Exactly. Sometimes they go to a by-election and actually slaughter an entire cow and cook it right there outside the voting. People come, they eat the meat, they vote for the IFP. That's what happened in KZN. It was quite
and despite the songs, not many Boers are actually killed at these events.
Exactly. Well, people of South Africa, they're not that crazy.
To get on to something else, I mean, you wrote a column this week talking about the DA. The DA has sort of unfurled their manifesto and what their campaign is all about and what I suppose the new leader, Jordan Hill-Lewis, stands for. What you argued in your column is that it's pretty much of the same. Is it, I mean, and that's an interesting view because if it is more of the same, the question becomes, is it just that we're not implementing the right things? We already have the recipes, the answers. And I tend to probably think that's maybe right. We have a lot of the answers to what we need. We just haven't implemented it properly. Or do you need new ideas? Or is it a bit of both?
Yeah, that's, you know, you're thinking that this time around the DA is really, they believe they're going to run Johannesburg. So I was thinking they're going to really unwrap something. And it was like, we do this better, do that better, do that better.
I mean, essentially, it's getting more of the private sector involved in what they want to do, right? I mean, that's a common theme.
That's the thing that stood out. That's the thing that stood out. Very complex, Rob, because who's private sector? And that's the situation that we have. You know, right now, Joburg is run through the private sector. There's no question about it. Contracts are given to the private sector. If you give Majova and Associates a contract to produce bread when we don't own a bakery, we are still the private sector. We're just getting rich. So those things need to
Just
be.
to clarify, you don't make any bread, just snow.
Not at all. Yeah. So those things need to be fine tuned. It does have questions. Some people are concerned that when you're talking about private business and getting more into the running of municipalities, and you're talking about efficiency and all of that, it sort of moves away from what you would say is BEE, and allows equal opportunity for everyone and all of that. The reality of the matter is that money in South Africa continues to be in white hands. Power comes from white businesses. If you get R100 million contract and you can't finance it, how the hell are you going to do the job? Only a big company can do that, and then government pays much later and all of that. Those are the realities, Rob. We need efficiency, yes. We're saying that we are 200 billion rand in the red when it comes to infrastructure in Joburg. It's going to take a lot of involvement of business. We just need to navigate these situations very carefully.
I mean, the thing about the DA policy as well is that I suppose if you ask a politician how you fix something, they will say, well, you need the politicians to fix it. And that's pretty much what they did. I mean, I think a lot of the private sector people will say, if you look at Joburg, you look at many state entities, what you need to do is trim the workforce dramatically. A lot of the money that's being paid for, say, city power goes to paying salaries. And the city of Joburg, rates have gone up massively, and it's going to hire more people. And that's what we saw with Joburg. They want to hire more people. But actually, it's not about hiring more people. It's about getting better results from the people you do hire. It's the same with the police and our education department, is you need to get better results from the people you do have, not just hire more people that is filling a gap that doesn't exist. So it's about implementing better policies and slimming stuff down, having an actual plan to get somewhere, as opposed to just saying, let's do it better. I mean, I think that the politicians will say we need more people in municipalities, which isn't true at all. You need to make things efficient.
Yeah, I was looking at a strike in a small town, and they said those are municipal workers striking. I was like, yo, it was a whole train of people. Like, Jesus, that's a lot of people from that small municipality, and that talks to what to this whole issue of creating jobs and all of that. We still have amapanyaza here in Gauteng. We're stuck with amapanyaza that don't really have anything. We don't know what they're doing. I haven't seen one where I live. All over Randburg, actually, you don't see amapanyaza. You don't know what they're doing. And those are the traffic wardens hired by Premier Panyaza Lusufi. And people are saying these are all bunch of ANC Youth League volunteers. Really, that's creating jobs for them. We've got the EPWP, the Expanded Public Works Program. It's so unregulated, the way that employment opportunities are created there, that it has become a political thing. People close to that particular party, etc., are the ones who are getting those things. We need to get rid of those things. Again, like I'm saying, improve efficiency. But I keep saying, Rob, if Helen's really is going to run Johannesburg, there are some realities. There are unions here. There are agreements that were done incorrectly, especially the salaries agreements, and they go into billions of rands, and they've been put in place now, and workers are like, okay, when you come in and say you're changing that, you're going to have problems.
I still think it absolutely has to be done. I mean,
absolutely,
part of what will happen is Helen Zille will get a mandate to go into Joburg and make those hard decisions, to fire people, axe a whole lot of people, make sure there's efficiencies, make sure people hit targets, because that is what is not happening. And in the wider sense, I mean, the unemployment figures came out yesterday, and unemployment has gone up to 33.6%. That's more than a third. 1 in 3 people who want a job even can't get a job. And that's excluding a whole lot of people who have given up looking for jobs. I mean, that's a massive amount of unemployment, and that's despite the fact that you have these job creation programs like the Expanded Public Works Program. That hasn't made a dent. What the government hasn't done is they've hired people on the margin to kind of hang around and lift up signs, which is ridiculous. They haven't invested. If you invest a lot more, then you'll have a lot in actual infrastructure, in building. You'll have a lot better, much better country.
Yeah, and those people are not getting any skills. In the Eastern Cape, you've got the N2 being redone and all of that. People are just being hired to wave flags, etc., and thinking, what skill is being transferred? You've got an opportunity now to work with companies that are hired by Sandron, which means in our small towns, we should in the future have companies now that can just deal with potholes like nothing, but you're not getting any skills being transferred. And talking about unemployment, Rob, I've got a funny story which actually makes me quite proud. I jokingly said
You're a journalist. You're not unemployed technically. It's the same thing almost.
I jokingly said in my house, listen, if you're looking for a job, son, you need to go to Cape Town because that's where the jobs are being created. My son went to Cape Town. He's now in the Metropolis Academy there, on his way to employment, which means I was right, and he's quite happy. And I'm looking at this survey. Many jobs are created in the Western Cape. Unemployment is around 26% in the Western Cape. That's the lowest in the entire country. That's DA country.
It's DA country, but also it's because a lot of the policies were about investing in the country as opposed to hiring more people.
Yeah.
Making sure that it's the outcome that matters, not how many people in a particular unit. I mean, that's what you judge it on.
If you invest, Rob, ultimately, you are going to create employment. If you take the bread contract and you give it to a South African company that actually is a bakery, they have no choice but to hire more trucks, hire more South African people, will pay tax, etc. That's what happens. You grow the South African economy, and that's what is happening in the Western Cape, and that's what people are looking for in other parts of the country when they're considering the DA. I had a slight concern when I was listening to the manifesto launch of the DA. When it comes to actually governing, you start moving into DA policies, and that's where the cookie starts to crumble. When you're talking about the DA, after all the talk is done, when you get into policies, you start having problems. And now, actual governing is going to have issues of affirmative action. It's going to have issues of BEE and all of that. And that's why I'm saying you've got to navigate these streets very, very carefully. And also the fact that it's going to be a coalition government. If you become too hard on the coalition, other people within the coalition collapse it. And this has happened many times. Remember, DA ran Tshwane, ran Ekurhuleni, and they ran the city of Joburg. They had mayors in those metros. Today, they don't have any mayor in those metros. Why? The partners collapsed the metros because of too much big brother control in those. Helen Zeller's got to be smarter.
To a large extent, a lot of those coalitions collapsed because of egos of individuals. I mean, the DA didn't behave with much EQ in those. They didn't behave as a coalition partner would, you'd expect in these things. And people got angry at the fact that the DA came in and, like you said, big brothered everyone and stomped all over it. And that's my concern with Joburg is Helen Zille and Herman Mashaba, the obvious natural marriage partners in Joburg, both have an immense sense of their own ego, of their own abilities. So it's quite a volatile relationship.
Yeah. Well, look, there are now more seats at the table in Joburg. Someone is going to take the mayoral chain, but somebody now is going to have deputy mayor. We've got deputy mayor now. You've got a speaker as well. So there are many ways now to cut the cake and make people sort of happy. I can see it can be done, but coalitions are really tough, especially at local government. They're really tough.
Well, let's move on to something else. I mean, now that you have an insight in the security forces through your son, which is very useful for us, I suppose, as journalists, we should be leaning on that a lot more. There was a fascinating story in the BBC last week. It actually lent a lot on prior reporting in South Africa. Open Secrets covered it, News 24, Sunday Times, a whole lot of people have written about this for years. But it involves a situation with our security forces. Now, it's like a spy novel, essentially. What happened is, a couple of years ago, this Ethiopian national, Abdullah Abadiga, who's somebody who came to Joburg, to South Africa as an asylum seeker, he was pegged supposedly as an Islamic State operative funneling money to them. So he was kidnapped a couple of years ago from the Mall of Africa. Essentially, just in broad daylight, he was kidnapped. And they traced the people who did it, which was this group of Special Forces officers. They linked the cars to those officers. And the Hawks were investigating this. The Hawks, the elite crime-fighting unit, which has got a lot of bad press in recent years. But in this case, it seems like they were doing the right thing.
They were doing the right thing.
And the investigator, Frans Mathipa, himself was then murdered, essentially, by people have traced it to these special forces operatives, 12 of them who were then arrested. And the reason this came out through the BBC last week is that the court case is due to begin against these 12 operatives, I think in about a week's time. But a lot of them are in hospital and claiming they can't attend the trial and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of obfuscation and trying to avoid accountability there. But it's a fascinating story for what it says about where our security forces are and the people who are paid to make sure that your country is safe, your special forces and your military, because this is obviously linked to the military in this particular case, are acting against the citizens of your own country. And when other people are trying to hold people accountable and enforce security, like the Hawks, like Frans Mathipa in this case, they get killed themselves. I mean, it's a scary, scary story.
Yeah, I remember that story, Rob. It was crazy. You could smell a rat immediately when you heard that he got a tip-off that we need to meet. There's information there's information that he's going to get and all of that, and then he was taken out. It became very clear that this goes high up. This goes high up. Look, Rob.
I mean, what had happened is he went and told his superiors at
Yeah.
Hawks. He said to them, these people, they're going to kill me. I'm going to die. And then that's exactly what happened.
And yeah, he knew what was coming. I mean, really good investigator. A huge loss to the country. It was clear, Rob. It was clear that it was coming up there, and we were hoping that we would see justice. It's very complex when it comes to these things. If it's difficult to get justice for some people who just drive us for Paul Mashatile beating somebody up in broad daylight in a Joburg highway, and it becomes a difficult case, you can imagine. Now with the military, not only in South Africa, all over the world, it's always very difficult to get so many military people inside a court. In some countries, they'll tell you that they've got military courts, and it becomes another story. The issue here, Rob, politically, is we've got deep involvement of politics in our security cluster in South Africa. There's too much ANC interest in what happens in the security cluster. Whether it's SAP's intelligence, military intelligence, the military itself, we are way too involved. And you would have somebody who's a general, and it turns out this person is a general with a lot of connections within the government politics, within the ANC politics, and they get on the wrong side of the law. It's very difficult to touch them. This is going to be an interesting case.
I mean, it's fascinating you talk about that. In this particular case, after these people were identified as being involved in this, the one brigadier, Solomon Lokoenyo, was promoted to the head of special forces. I mean, you have promotions happening after you've been identified as being involved in this, which tells you that the people in charge of this, people supposed to exercise oversight, are rewarding this kind of behavior, and that's what we've seen at the Madlanga Commission. I mean, there's parallels in the Madlanga Commission. I mean, just speak to exactly the sense that you can get away with any of this.
Not only get away, you actually get promoted. You mess up and you become Dinapule, and they come back and say you can be a minister Dinapule again and mess up again if you want. We also as citizens need to hold the government accountable. We got to be a little bit angry, not necessarily just bend tires, but to say no and stand our ground. And the Dinapulers of this world should not be in government.
I mean, this also evokes that, the memories of what happened with the head of our army. I mean, was it General Rizani Mapwanya, who went and met Iran's defense chiefs in Iran and pledged South Africa's support for Iran, which was contrary to South African policy. And at the time, people said, how is this guy doing this? He should be hauled back and held accountable. And you yourself said at the time you didn't think that he would ever be held accountable.
At the time, I knew that was not going to happen, and everybody was like, hey, this guy's going to be held accountable. He's gone too far. Like, there's no way that's going to happen. And Mapwanya was like, arrogantly saying, we've been partnering with these people since 1996. We actually have this meeting. The one that he attended was actually about 6 months late, was supposed to have gone the previous year. And it was like, we're not going to cancel it. This is ongoing. And immediately after that, we had another issue with Iran again in South Africa with the naval practices, etc. And that tells you that life goes on. That guy was nothing happened to that guy. He's still the chief of the military. 3 weeks ago, he was in Russia. So nice videos of him in Moscow with the Russian army and all of that. Nothing happened, and nothing is going to happen.
So there's two reasons why nothing might happen. One of them is that either he's effectively carrying out what the ANC wants, and this is a sanctioned and mandated
Yeah.
thing, or Ramaphosa and the president, who's essentially the head of the armed forces, doesn't have any authority over the army, and people don't recognize it, and they just don't see him as an authority figure over the armed forces. I mean, which of those two do you think it is?
Rob, it's simply the issue of being an outgoing president. You know, if the outgoing president instructs this must happen, and the person or the people who are seen to be the next guys to come in, remember they're going to come in for the first term of 5 years and another term of another 5 years, 10 years. You're not going to listen to the guy who's deadbeat. You know, you're going to listen to the group that's coming in. You know, and when you have a military that is that close to politics, they tend to read what's going on in politics, and they're like, this guy is yesterday's news. Here are the people who are coming in, etc. You know, and nothing really happens. And like I'm saying, the guy is implementing ANC policy in any case, and there is no one in the National Executive Committee of the ANC that said we need to get rid of this guy. You know, they said, and nothing came out of it. They're sitting many times, and nothing has come out of it. So disciplinary, highly unlikely. But Rob, looking at the military now, the political leadership of the military now. Mama Angie Motshekga is now in charge of the military. She's the minister.
He was a less than distinguished minister of basic education for years.
Exactly, and now she's in charge. She's in charge of the military. You can imagine what the generals are thinking. You know, they're thinking, look, she's a figurehead. We are actually running this place, and we're going to continue to run this place.
Well, that's the point that is so scary. I think after that issue with Iran, there was a Rise and Zukile MP. Lokona Nguni, who basically he caused a huge fuss when he said, so this means that South Africa is ripe for a coup. The generals have lost confidence in their commander-in-chief, and that's the bigger issue. When the army and the armed forces feel they can do what they want, there's zero accountability, and in fact they look like they're in charge. This sends a very specific message to the rest of the military forces.
Well, we still have a very politicized army. They have not lost confidence in the ANC. Lots of structures lose confidence in an outgoing president, etc. Broadly, a lot of people didn't see Ramaphosa as somebody who's going to have a lot of control of the ANC because he's been out for so long. And even before then, he was not really strong within the ANC structures. He comes from the union background, not necessarily ANC background. So not powerful within what used to be called insiles, which was the ANC internally, Mama Matikizela Mandela's and others who were inside, or powerful from the exiles. He was non-existent there. So he was never really a powerful figure within the ANC and cannot really command the Thabo Mbeki type of control of the ANC. And that's the situation we're looking at right now. You can see what's happening.
I mean, I do think Mguni's wrong in that I don't think that...
Oh, no, that we are far from that.
We're far from a coup, but the point is that we've seen the military growing increasingly muscular in the way they exercise their authority, and nobody's holding them accountable. So that's why I think this case involving the special forces officers in a week's time is really important. You have to demonstrate that there's accountability for breaching the law and basically doing the exact opposite of what you're mandated to, which is to protect the country.
That case has been rolling for a number of years now, Rob. I can expect that we are going to be talking about that case 2-3 years from now, you know. So accountability, if it does come, it won't be as swift as we expect it to be.
Guys, that's all we're going to have time for today. It's in Sharp. It's been fantastic to speak about this particular case, and we'll be back next week with many tales of how we rolled in the snow and experienced Joburg at its coldest, which we'll absolutely share with you. It's been a great chat, Zuks. Thanks again.
Good times, Rob. Sharp.